everybody? Can everybody, if everybody can hear me, Sheila, can you raise your hand? All right, thank you so much. All right, hey, before we go to the pledge, I do want to tell you that I'm doing it remote, and I appreciate all your indulgence. I'm in Park City, Utah, and the reason we're here is because the maid of honor at our wedding was surprised yesterday by my wife, who was the maid of honor at her wedding, and her family with a surprise renewal of vows that her husband had planned, and we were the bait. And that pulled up. We met her in a Mexican restaurant in downtown Park City. She still didn't understand what was going on until she walked into this house that the family had rented and had her entire family surprise her. So that was awesome. All right. So thank you for the indulgence, but I have a second announcement before the pledge. And is Irv in the room? And could Irv please stand? And I agree that I should be making a donation. Pat Coyle. All right, Irv. I knew about this a few weeks ago, but Savita, I assumed it was a surprise, but I guess it's no longer a surprise. Irv is the recipient of the Richard D. King Award, which will be given to him at the Rotary District Conference at the end of the month. And we should all applaud Irv for all his service and everything he's done for the club and the district. And to show, and we really think, and look at everyone, please, if you can, show your appreciation of Irv and sign up for the district conference. I know Joel sent out an email. It's, we'll pay for one, dinner or lunch. So come on, guys, let's show Irv all the love that he deserves.
The pledge.
All right, the pledge. So Kathy Coyle, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, what do we got? Stu, Michael, Tim, what do we got? So I'm sorry if we misstep here, but none of us on Zoom can hear you. So if I speak out of turn, well, there's nothing you can do, but anyway, I'll apologize in advance. But I thanks so much for reprising the Beach Boys and Dennis Wilson. Thanks so much. Favorite song of mine. Thought of the day. Now, no one signed up this week, so with Dennis's approval, we came up with a video.
I think the definition of greatness is to inspire the people next to you. Yeah, I think that's what greatness is or should be. It's not something that lives and dies with one person. It's how can you inspire a person to then in turn inspire another person.
Right, so thanks. Let's thank the late great Kobe Bryant, and I say that with all due respect. Another thing about me is I am a very diehard Laker fan, and but I do love the Warriors. But I thought this was appropriate because that's part of our. I think that's part of what Rotarians should do is inspire others, and hopefully they achieve greatness. So, all right, thanks. Let's move on to the next. Our front line. You guys do such a great job. Oops, let's introduce everybody. Spur reporter Pat, thank you so much for doing it and also co-hosting with Jeff on Zoom. Our Spur publisher is going to be Kathy. Thank you so much, Kathy. Of course, our main photographer, the Richard D. King Award winner, Irv Stowers. AV is Dennis O'Brien. Jeff Youngsma is our Zoom host and chat monitor, and our greeter was Marianne Roja. Thanks so much. Now, I do not see any visiting Rotarians on Zoom, so let's go to the room. Do we have any visiting Rotarians?
Yes, I have the honor of introducing former district governor, and I told the first woman governor of our district, Carolyn Schutz Daysdorfer. Please stand up. And resident of Pleasant.
Also, president of Hayward South Rotary, and I came in the first year she was president of Hayward South Rotary.
Welcome. Have any other visiting Rotarians? I take that as a no. So let's move on to guests. I don't see any guests on Zoom. How about in the room?
I have a special guest, and she's kind of looking us over, so be nice to her. Her name is Christine Lusty. She's from Livermore, and she has a wonderful business called Monarch Designs, which I'm sure she can tell you later on. So,
Well, welcome. We are the funnest group of people that you will ever know. Oh, maybe that's a little hyperbole, but we appreciate you being here. Any other guests? And by the way, that mic that was being used, we can hear. Just so you know.
I'd like to introduce my caregiver again, Rob.
Hi, Rob. Anybody else?
I think that's it.
Thanks so much, Sheila. All right, let's go. Let's announcements. So we've got a few, and let's start with the first one. Brian, would you mind coming up to the podium or at least using whichever mic is best so the rest of us can hear on Zoom, and tell us about Polio Plus, please.
Okay. It's supposed to be a nice slide, and so you'll have to listen to me and imagine I'm a nice slide. Okay. So I'm going to talk about, first of all, the good news. The Rotary Club of Livermore has been an incredible supporter of Polio Plus. Through the years, we've always been able to meet our goals. The bad news is that this year we're $6,500 behind our goal. A long way. Our goal was based on about a giving of $150 per club member to polio club. And the slide would then say that you can make this donation through MicroTrade very easily, very readily, or you can write out a check to Rotary International with a memo Polio Plus and give it to Gal. While I'm talking, think whether you've given them or you haven't, or maybe you'd even be interested in giving a little bit more. So I want to quickly run through what Polio Plus is, a little bit of history. Some of you, many of you know all about it, some of you may not. About 4 decades ago, Rotary clubs in the Philippines demonstrated that by having mass vaccination, simultaneous mass vaccination of a whole country, they could eliminate the endemic polio from that country. And Rotary went on and demonstrated this in 2 or 3 other countries. This involved the local Rotary clubs mobilizing all sorts of volunteers within the different countries. And the general meeting of Rotary International had Albert Sabin as a speaker. He got up and he said, "You guys have done a fantastic job. Why don't you do this for the whole world?" And Rotary rose to that. They raised $150 million and went to the World Health Organization and said, "We'd like to eliminate polio worldwide." What did the World Health Organization say? "But you're just a service club. Look, we've got $150 million that we'd like to put on the table." "Oh, you do?" And so World Health Organization bought in, and they formed the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And this was joined by UNICEF and, very importantly, the CDC of this country became a participant, particularly for the testing end of things. A few years later, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation also joined. And let me mention that Rotary International has committed to produce, to give over $50 million a year for guarantees. And the Gates Foundation has more than matching that. It's 2 for 1. So every $100 you give becomes $300 towards it. Okay. We were also talking about Polio Plus. Originally, polio was eliminated, polio, but then it has morphed into a much bigger project. And for instance, they found that giving vitamin A with the oral polio vaccine prevented childhood blindness, which was affecting about 500,000 kids a year before Polio Plus was able to deliver that. Nowadays, with inoculation, it's including measles vaccine, DPT vaccine, and also doing a whole lot of stuff to improve the sanitation, the sanitary environment of the thing. The GPEI now is $1 billion a year activity, involving all countries all around the world with contributions from different countries and so on. For instance, our president, Jennifer Jones, just a few weeks ago, was invited to talk at the British House Parliament, and they gave a talk advocating continued British support for polio plus. It's been an incredible enterprise, and polio is virtually eliminated from around the world. And to achieve that in countries, I wouldn't mention, but you could imagine some of the countries that we've been able to go into and immunize the populations. So that's the good news. The bad news is, frustratingly, there's still a little pocket of endemic polio in the Khyber region bordering Pakistan and Afghanistan. And every year there's been just a few cases coming out. Amazingly, just a few weeks ago, the Taliban bought into the GPEI concept and is organizing a mass immunization of Afghanistan. And this is really amazing when you think that all the groundwork, nearly all the groundwork is done by women. And so the Taliban has made a special exemption for their women won't work rules to enable this. And they're training men to go along with the women group doing this. And you may remember there was a thing on the Rotary, just the coming up, the women who were doing this work. Tragically, 8 of them have now lost their lives through assassination in the past few years, which is really upsetting. But I feel very optimistic that the project is going to go on. Because every year there are over 100 million babies born that have to be immunized. And the population as a whole has to have a high level of immunity to finally break the transmission of polio across. So I feel very strongly about this. And I feel very strongly that we must meet our goal. And I myself am going to double my donation. And I'm really proud to feel that I'm part of participating in this incredible worldwide endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. Are others interested in, but perhaps we can hand out some of the cards that we haven't had in the past to bridge the gap in our commitment to for Polio Plus?
I can go get some of them.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks, Brian. All right, next, I believe is Don. Our next stop, and if Don Sweeney makes his way up, Don recently became a member of the club, and he is going to give his new members talk. And and I understand that Don has lived a well life. And Don, you got 5 minutes to tell us about that life.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, I thought I would divide my 5 minutes into 3 sections. First, I'd like to talk about my family, then I'll talk about my professional career, and then I'll talk about what my wife and I are doing in community engagement and what I'm interested in doing. And one of the things I found interesting was all the connections I have with the current members of Rotary, and I'll mention a number of their names as I go along. My wife and I moved to Livermore 23 years ago, and it's interesting that when we came, my wife worked for Paul Thompson, and so I have 3 daughters. 2 of them live here in the Bay Area, and 1 lives in Colorado. 1 lives in Danville, 1 lives in Oakland. My daughter in Colorado is head of nursing at a clinic in a small town called Gunnison, Colorado, which is called the coldest town in the lower 48. So that's interesting. So my wife has 4 daughters and 1 son. We have a blended family. So together we have 7 daughters and 1 son. 2 of those daughters are permanent residents of Germany. So every year we try to spend a month in Europe and use one of their houses as a base and travel around. So my professional career, I did my graduate work at the University of Michigan. And when I finished at the University of Michigan, I see some Go Blue alumni here. When I finished my work, I took a position on the faculty at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana, joined the faculty of mechanical engineering, and was there for like 13 years. But as soon as I finished at Michigan, I started as a consultant in the laser program at Livermore Labs. And through that entire period, when I was at Purdue, I was come to Livermore, beginning in 1972, up until I decided to leave Purdue, leave Purdue, and I've been working with Sandia National Labs, the combustion research facility. So I joined the Sandia Combustion Research Facility and worked at Sandia for some time. And then after about 10 years, I moved across the street and went back to Livermore Labs. And I wanted to talk briefly about 2 programs I worked with, or 1 program I worked with at Livermore, and that was to develop a new type of lithography. And 2 weeks ago, we heard the director of Form Factor talk about a company in the Netherlands that dominates lithography called ASML. And Glenn Kubiak was one of the managers at Sandia, and a number of other people. I managed the program at Lawrence Livermore. And it's interesting that Intel sponsored a $200 million program and to develop this type of lithography. ASML then bet their company on the future of that technology, along with Zeiss, the German optics company. And today they sell that lithography station for well over $100 million a piece. And every iPhone that you have, new iPhone, uses that technology. And they can make chips of a technical number 5 nanometers, feature sizes of 5 nanometers in size. So Glenn and another person was a principal optical designer in that program, and that was Lynn Sepulveda. So when that program wound down in the early 2000s, I went to the University of Arizona and worked in astronomy. And I actually commuted to Tucson for almost 10 years. I was the project manager of a large telescope called LSST. And it's sponsored by the Department of Energy and the National Science Foundation. And it has an aperture of 8.4 meters. It's going to be still in construction in Chile, in South America, and it's going to be the fastest telescope ever built. And who was the principal designer of the optical system but Lynn Sepulveda? So there's a lot of connections there. So let me transition then and talk about what we're doing, what I'm doing in community engagement and what I'm interested in. I'll mention my wife, Mary, is a member of the board of Spark. And that's the local Shakespeare company. They have summer festivals at winery. And they're trying to build a building in Stockman Spark. And she's very involved with that. She's an active participant at the bankhead and volunteers there many weekends a month. But my principal engagement for the last 4 years or so has been with the Quest Science Center, which is a new startup. And in fact, the founder of the Quest Science Center was Alan Burnham. And two of the emeritus board members of Quest is Jay Davis and Alan Burnham. And so there are a lot of connections there. And Manya Lane is the CEO currently of Quest Science Center. And Quest is a startup organization also trying to build a building in Stockman's Park. They have the plot of land and the architectural design already set. One of the activities that I'm very involved in is working with both Junction Elementary and Middle School and Maryland. And we're building CO2 sensors. And then my sponsor for joining Rotary was Dennis O'Brien. And we're trying to build CO2 sensors that we can place in every single classroom, science classroom in the Livermore School District. So those are activities that are going very well, and we hope to have a lot of impact with those. And they're pretty excited. The students are pretty excited with these CO2 sensors. Have a lot of fun with them. But let me end with a plug for the Quest Science Center. This Saturday from 10 to 5, we're hosting the Innovation Fair at the Alameda County Fairgrounds. And thousands of people come to that. And I have a booth, and you can come in, and I'll use artificial intelligence to create an image of you. But there are a number of major industrial sponsors. Okay. And so from 10 to 5, Alameda County Fairgrounds come for the Innovation Fair. I think you'll find it interesting. So those are the things we're interested in, and I look forward to being an active member in.
Thank you, Don. Thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for the new member talk.
President Splin,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick little comment here from Beth.
Sure.
Yes, when I was at Junction Avenue School the other day, I got handed a very wonderful packet that is getting passed around. It looks like it's in front of Mike Reel there. Yes, all of the third graders who were given books by many of us have written thank you letters and drawn pictures of their books. So it's just getting passed around. That's what it is.
Thank you, Beth. All right. Dennis, if you can move the slideshow up. Paul, a quick announcement, please.
Yeah, I just want to invite everybody to attend next week. Be sure to attend. It's going to be an exciting meeting. We're going to be honoring students in Livermore. We've got both the Student of the Month we'll be doing, and we also have Youth in Government Day. And as a bonus, our city manager is going to give a State of the City talk. So I'm encouraging people to arrive early, close to 12, and that'll give you time to interact with the students and share kind of your experiences and your professions with them. And as a reminder, we're going to be serving lunch, sandwich lunch next week, and we'll be meeting in the Cresta Blanca room. Thank you, Splin.
Thanks, Paul. And Paul and Sheila will be running the meeting next week because it's all things youth and government. All right, so our special Big Bob Cowan is going to be giving us an update on CONAIQUEM, the Burn Center, of course. Is anyone introducing Bob? Or Bob, you're introducing yourself?
And here's Bobby.
Yep. Here's Bob.
Okay, so,
Oh, by the way, Bob, am I on time?
yep, thank you.
So I kept my promise. You got to keep your
Okay.
promise.
So that didn't work, Dennis.
Oh, and one more. Hey, the theme by the way, the theme of the month is all good things are Italian. That'll be our theme at the end of April.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about, tell me when can you hear me or am I too loud? Too loud. Too loud. No.
I can fix that.
Okay, I'll talk as loud, but hold it close. So could you kind of shrink that down?
Yeah.
The side strap. I'm the treasurer of a charity called CONAIQUEM, BCF, which stands for Burn Children Foundation. And I'm the treasurer. There's 3 members of the board of directors in the audience: Don Wentz, Raise your hand, Don. Here, Kathy Coyle, and our distinguished guest, Carolyn Basdorfer. We just got back at the end of March, a trip down for a board meeting in Santiago, Chile. And I'm really impressed with this organization. I'm going to tell you about it, and hopefully you'll be impressed as I am at the end of this talk. By the way, CONAIQUEM, it's kind of, I know it's kind of a weird name. It's the Spanish acronym for the English translation would be Corporation for Burned Children. So you can see where it comes from. So pediatric burns. So if you're burned as a child, you get scarred. And as you grow, the scar does not grow. So with a pediatric burn, you can have surgeries, transplant, all sorts of not so nice things, especially to happen to a kid when they're growing up. And in undeveloped countries, or even if you live in a developed country, but you're out in the boonies, so to speak, you might not get the best care of it. CONAIQUEM was established to treat burn kids, initially in Chile, and now it covers all of South America and Latin America. And as I said, the scars don't grow with the child. I'm going to show you a video. It's about 5 minutes long. It's about Lydia. There's two parts of the video, and it kind of goes back and forth in time. One was taken when, I think she was about 7 to 8 years old when it was taken. And the other part, she's a fully grown adult. And it's a pretty shocking video in places. But every time I watch it, I'm in tears at the end. So let's watch it. It's in Spanish with English subtitles.
Hola, soy Lidia, vengo del Perú. Llevo 18 años rehabilitándome en CONAIQUEM y llegué cuando tenía 6 años.
Mi casa es de tierra. Vela usamos allá. La mesa, como estaba sin patas, la lámpara estaba sobre la mesa. Me voy por debajo de la mesa y ella me estaba esperando afuera con su foco. Y la lámpara había estado sin querosene y mi mamá lo pone más. Entonces cuando yo me levanto y no me había dado cuenta y se cae el querosene, se derrama sobre mi pecho y hace juego directo. Yo me estaba encendiendo. Estaba con un vestido así de elástico que se estira así. Y se pegó sobre mi cuerpo y yo lo pelaba. Como ancho estaba mi cuello. De acá estaba aquí en el pecho. Y acá y mi labio de acá me jalaba hacia acá abajo. Y mi ojito ya estaba jalando también.
He recorrido un largo camino en mi rehabilitación, acompañada de los médicos, de todos los funcionarios, de mi papá, y ahí sigo. Mi tratamiento ha sido muy largo y sacrificado, pero estoy muy feliz y muy contenta porque todo ha valido la pena.
Yo no podía levantar los brazos, ni mover las piernas, ni reír, ni reírme. Y ahorita ya puedo ya.
Yo pienso muchas veces que si no hubiese llegado aquí a CONAIQUEM, no sería yo por la Lidia. Yo quiero decirle a todos los niños de CONAIQUEM que no se asusten cuando llegan por primera vez, porque yo también pasé por lo mismo, me dio susto, pero después con el tiempo y los años todo cambió. Cuando yo llegué a CONAIQUEM tenía el cuello pegado aquí en el pecho, tenía los brazos encogidos y todo ha ido evolucionando muy bien. Y ahora tengo la carita muy bien, el cuello mejor, muy bien. Y aquí les voy a mostrar. Y aquí estoy, feliz y contenta. Para mí CONAIQUEM es una familia. CONAIQUEM es una fundación muy bonita que todas las personas, los funcionarios te reciben con brazos abiertos. El cariño y el amor es mutuo con todos.
Colorín colorado, este cuento se ha acabado. Hola Lidia. Hola Lidia.
Mi infancia lo pasé aquí en CONAIQUEM y voy a extrañar mucho todo lo que es de CONAIQUEM, mi niñez, mi infancia, todos los recuerdos vividos y con mi tía Carmina. Quiero dar las gracias a todos los funcionarios y médicos de CONAIQUEM, darle las gracias de todo corazón. Les agradezco infinitamente, muchísimas gracias con todo y siempre los voy a llevar en mi corazón porque los mejores recuerdos se llevan en el corazón.
I have trouble. I've watched that 7 times. I still have trouble.
Bob, could I just say something? Lydia was the child who inspired me. I haven't seen anything about her for 3 years because when she was 18, she said she wanted to take a break from the program, so I could no longer sponsor her. So seeing this today is the first I've seen since she stopped, and I'm just so proud of her for what she's been through and thankful to CONAIQUEM for how they've done that for her.
So in the video, when Lydia was 8, she said, "Colon coloradas suento se ha acabado," which doesn't translate. It literally means snip, snap, snout, and this tail is pulled. But the real translation is the prince rode off with the princess and they lived happily ever after. So CONAIQUEM gave Lydia her childhood. She's now an adult, full functioning. It's just amazing. CONAIQUEM is such an amazing organization. And I want to tell you about them. So CONAIQUEM was, I'm still shook up. CONAIQUEM was started 44 years ago by Dr. Jorge Rojas, a Rotarian of all. And he was a young plastic surgeon. Notice kids were being burned and neglected. So he, I think, helped develop some of these procedures you've seen to treat scars in children. And his way was to provide a clinic for kids and a path through adulthood where they could be treated and brought back to normal life. And he's done that. And they've expanded from just Chile to South America and now Latin America as well. So you can see the map of Chile here from top to bottom on the left. It's 2,500 miles long and on average 110 miles wide. So they've put 4 clinics into operation to treat burn children. You can see up and down. The newest one is the one at Concepcion, which we visited in March. And it's just absolutely fantastic. I'm going to tell you a little bit what goes on at those clinics. Here's the clinic in San Diego. When you walk into the reception room, you can see the benches there. Everything in the clinic, the artwork was designed for children by the Art Institute in Pasadena. And as a big project. It is fantastic. All through, and when you're walking through the aisles, the art isn't there, it's down there so the kids can see it. They really thought of everything. It's just really amazing. You come in from the countryside for treatment. You stay in an apartment in this dormitory with your mom or dad. You go to school, they have a school there. And by the way, it's free. Doesn't cost the family a cent. And I covered the pediatric burns, but you could tell from that video how when you're burned like that, her arms essentially are glued to her chest. And think about how you interact with other kids that haven't been burned. I'm sure they mock you. So it's tough. And the pediatric burns are skewed toward poor people. I mean, the people living out in the countryside, probably 1 or 2 rooms, a stove in the middle of the living area where a pot's always boiling for either washing clothes or for food. And the little kid wants to see what's there. Lydia, by the way, I don't know if you caught that, there was a kerosene lantern that wasn't tightened down and she knocked it over and it spilled over and the kerosene got on fire. That's why she was badly hurt. And 1 year old is the most frequent age of being burned. We saw a young boy being treated who was in a crib where fireworks fell in the crib. But hey, he was actually giggling during his treatment. And so the rehabilitation just isn't doing surgery, it's also all sorts of transdisciplinary treatments or I guess, what do you call it, physical therapy, all sorts of mechanical manipulation, but most importantly, it includes counseling. And so big part of all of their clinics is a counseling area where they counsel the parents and work with the kids to help them understand, what's going on. Can you imagine, you've had one operation, skin graft, you're going to have another, how they try and get the kids mentally ready for that and how to interact with other kids. Really, they thought of everything on how to treat kids. So I'm going to show you a couple of before and afters. This is Ellison. You can see her on the left, and she's wrapped, she not only burned her head, but there were burns on her body, and she's wrapped in compression bandages. And I'll have more to say about that in a second. But after the surgeries or treatments, you need to put compression on the scar area or the transplant area for it to behave properly and have a good outcome. But here you can see her from the left to the right, and she looks just like a normal kid now, which is exactly what you want. Martin, you can see his face badly burned. There he is during treatment, and he's still in treatment, but you can see he's coming along really, really well. Paola, I'm not sure what happened to her, but it sure wasn't good on her face. And you can, as you go around, you can see her at various times. The one in the middle is what she looks like now. So from the upper left to that middle picture, it's just, I don't know how they do it. I really don't. It's just amazing. I put this one in because this is Mirko. He's now in college. But when he was a little guy, I was told the most common burn is the kid goes like this to the stove to see what's for dinner, and then his hands get stuck to the stove. Yeah, really, really nice. And I don't know if you can see his hands, the scar tissue webbed together. And the problem is, if you're in a rural area, you get treated for the immediate burn, but you don't get treated for the scarring for the first 6 months to a year afterwards. You realize maybe somebody tells them about CONAIQUEM, or they So the scarring gets bad, like this poor kid, but he's okay now. They were able to do the plastic surgery to fix it all. So how has Rotary been involved? Well, it turns out the Rotary clubs in Chile, there's 3 main cities. There's the 4 main cities, the ones I showed you, all have Rotary clubs. And they've all gone together at various times to get Rotary global grants. Only in one of those did a U.S. club participate, and that was the Dublin Club. And each of the global grants is between $50,000 and $75,000. So I want to show you just what kind of things a global grant can do. There's a physical therapy device that does both electronic and light stimulation on the scar tissue. There's a 3D printer. By the way, that's one of our board members, Ellie from Washington, D.C. And it makes prosthesis. But an interesting application, they have a way of making an image of your face. They 3D print this clear thing, and they keep getting it till it's exactly right. And then they make that mask that goes over for the compression of the scars after the treatment. So the 3D printer was TensMed, that's an electronic stimulation thing, and actually I have one of those, which I'm going to loan to Debbie tonight. So it's a way to twitch muscles to stretch and contract. And they had got anesthesia trolleys. And it turns out anesthesia trolleys, I looked this up, they're expensive. I don't know what's in those drawers, but they're expensive. And of course, now they have several places they do surgeries as well, so they need to do one. And here's a deep oscillation device, and I have no idea what it does. But you can see the cast of characters around the thing. Or there's Kathy on the right, and Carolyn, Don, you're there in that picture. And beside Don is Jorge Rojas, Dr. Rojas, the Rotarian member who founded CONAIQUEM 44 years ago. And the gentleman next to him runs that clinic, and there's 2 more Rotarians that are on the board. And next to me is Dr. Rojas' son, who is now the president of CONAIQUEM. I think he has an MBA degree, is that right? Yeah. And his other daughter is a child, what do you call a doctor for children? That's what he has. And so we met her, she was at the hospital, she actually helped my wife with an issue, but that's another story. Here's another item bought by the global grant, and this is an ultrasonic technique to look at the scars. And it's very important to know their depth and makeup for the next device, which, well, telemedicine is a way, and this is especially important during the pandemic, to treat the kids remotely. And that was set up by a Rotary grant. Oh, sewing machines, those compression garments. Well, they're hard to sew. There's parts that stretch only one way, there's parts that stretch 2 ways. And they have there's 6 or 7 women that sit around these sewing machines, sewing the compression garment. Each child needs 2, one to wear and one to clean, and then they change every day. And you can see a little, that's an example of the little guy on the right there in his compression outfit. Even for the hands, they have compression bands. And the kids will wear these for maybe 4 or 5 months. They'll outgrow it and they have to get new ones. So this treatment takes from when you're born to when you're an adult. It's a real commitment by the treaters. They try and make it fun. You notice the kid in the hydrotherapy pool with this snorkel and mask. Kind of cool. So I talked about knowing the depth and features of the scar. That's important for the laser equipment, which is brand new technology. And this is for the Lloyd Base Orphan Memorial Fund, which helped fund this. That's Carolyn's husband. By the way, Carolyn has been involved with CONAIQUEM for over 20 years. And Dr. Rojas even helped Lloyd when he had a heart attack, when he was visiting their house about 5 or 6 years ago. Yes. So Lloyd has passed away, but in his memory, we collected $50,000 to help buy this laser equipment, which is shown here. And the way it works it makes a crosshatch pattern in the scar, but at a very, precise depth, what you got from that machine I showed you. And it makes the rehabilitation process go much, much faster. The scar or the transplant can stretch a little bit, and it has really helped in the treatment. And so it can replace a lot of the transplants, which are terrible for the kid. So, and those are the kind of scars the laser treatment can work with. And there's just, that shows you what the laser treatment looks like, and there's some more of our board of directors sitting around the laser equipment. We need more of those. So I showed you that they do treatment. The CONAIQUEM also does prevention, training, and research. I'll quickly go through that. Burn prevention. They have a program for preschool and kindergarten where, again, with these three characters, Camila, Santi, the cat, and Lucas. Again, this was the group from Pasadena Art Institute College that came up with this whole concept. They currently do it to 50% of the schools in Chile, and they've just gotten a government grant to expand it to the 100% of the Chilean schools. The other thing they do for prevention is they've campaigned in Chile's legislature and they've outlawed fireworks. And I think there's several other South American countries have done so as well as part of this, the efforts of CONAIQUEM and the fellow Rotarians that have a little clout in those countries. Wish they could do the same here, because I think fireworks are one of the big burn deals in the United States for kids. They also train what I call train and return. You can see all the countries in South America and Latin America where medical professionals, both MDs, nurses, physical therapists, equipment operators, come to mainly the Santiago Center to kind of maybe work there 4 or 5 months and really learn how the special techniques for treating burn kids. The last thing I want to mention is they have a research arm. And a lot of the techniques they've developed for treating scars and kids have been adopted worldwide. I know there's some, and they've learned things too, but I know there's some, I read about the Europeans adopting a couple of techniques that Dr. Ross and his cohorts came up with. But the phage treatment isn't. One of the problems is the wounds get infected, and they're trying to develop a virus that will attack the bacteria that are in the wounds, called phage treatments. And we were in their laboratory, and they have 6 PhD microbiologists working on this. They showed us a couple examples of what looked like promising phages with where they had the bacteria, the phage in the middle, in a tray of the bacteria, and around the phage, it was completely dead. So like when penicillin was invented, the same kind of thing. So it's pretty impressive that they also do the research as well. So the question is, I'm asking us, how can we help? Well, the answer is we already help. This club sponsors a child. We donated to the Roy Space Gopher Laser Fund. You can see all the Rotary clubs that sponsor at least one child at $1,000 a year. So, hats off to us. We also in the crowd have more than a few people that sponsor kids. So we help that way too. So you can sponsor a child individually, $1,000 a year, pretty much, as Kathy was saying for Lydia, supports a child for 1 year. And quite a few Rotarians do that. Not all of them give $1,000. Some of them give $25 a month. Some of them give lump sums of $100. We accept any donations. What I'd really like to do is get us interested in a global grant for a new laser for CONAIQUEM. And that's I think a task that I'll try and move forward with. And then the last thing is we're having a fundraiser on October 1. And that's a fiesta float on the bay. So, and that's all I know about it is the date, and it's going to happen. It's a noontime sail on the bay with food, drinks, and probably some music and a lot of fun. And one way you can have fun and support Quantiquem at the same time.
And Bob, Dr. Rojas is going to join us for that. So if you have ever want to meet him, then now's your big chance.
So, any questions? Did anybody's eyes tear up with that video? Yeah. That's amazing. It is really amazing.
Bob, I wanted to make one comment about the compression garments, and one of the things that every time you visit there, you learn something new, and all of the seams are on the outside.
Yeah.
Because the seams will irritate the skin, so when you look at the garment, you see all the skin. And they need to have special sergers to do the stitching and things like that. But I didn't know that about the seams, and it's just a small thing like that that you go, oh, that makes sense. So anyway.
Well, just a second.
I just would like to make a comment also about the atmosphere in Quantiquem. You mentioned it, the care and the relationship with the children is just amazing. In Concepcion, we were in a room where a father was trying to deal with a child who had obvious burns, and the child was just crying and going all over the place. And the therapist walked in the room, and the little girl ran over to him, threw her arms around him, and that was her helper. And this is the way the staff relates to the kids.
Brian, you had a question?
Well, it sounds as though the laser thing really can be a game changer.
Yes.
And it's a feeling that a lot of effort should be put into getting lasers treatment up and running in all of the centers there.
So it's interesting you say that. I tried to look up the price, and it turns out there's a range of laser machines developed for skin treatment. And I was told the one they need costs $250,000. So they're not cheap. Although you can, when you look them up, you can find them for $15,000. But
Bob, I have one more thing I want to share. It's laser oriented. But yeah, if you remember seeing the little girl with the plastic form on her face, that has to be done with an impression at this time. They also are looking at getting a laser scanner that can do a 3-dimensional scan.
they already have.
Oh, they got that.
That's what I feel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
Okay, I thought they had a 3D printer, but not the scanner.
So the one thing about Chile and Peru, where Lydia was from, is when you go to the cities, they're first world and second world cities. Actually, the Quantiquem Santiago campus is in the second world part of the city. You know, places you wouldn't want to live, but they're not one-room shacks, but they're kind of slummy looking area. But a lot of the people live in the countryside in third world conditions. And that's where a lot of these kids come from. And that population of that kind of family goes up in Peru, goes up even more in Bolivia, goes up even more in Central America. So unfortunately, there's kind of a steady supply of children for this. So I thank you very much. If anybody wants to talk about donating, please do.
Thank you so much, Bob. And thank all of you for listening. And I appreciate that we had the board members, Carolyn and Kathy and Don, and of course, Bob. Thanks for bringing us that report and traveling obviously to Chile. So thank you so much. And that concludes our meeting. Remember, next week is Youth and Government. Paul and Sheila will be running the show. Take care, everybody.
Stay well, stay safe.
Take care, guys.
Wow, great program.
Great program.
Yeah, really was.
Good job, guys. That was
Have a good
job.
week.
Yep,
Yeah.
have a good week.
Rojas is also a wonderful guitar player.
Yeah, terrific
All
classical
right, we're gonna
guitar.
take care.
All right, take care.
Okay, if everybody's good, I will go ahead and close down the room. Going once, going twice, sold
Thanks,
to an
Jeff.
American. All right, take care, Pat. Thanks a lot, buddy. Bye-bye.